Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association. Missouri produces wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details on the variety of products made in the state are at choosewood.com.
Welcome to St. Louis on the Air. I'm Sarah Fenske. Let's meet a veteran on a mission. Sheila McGlown was serving in the U.S. Air Force when she was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer, cancer that had already spread. That was 10 years ago. Today, she's still living with cancer and undergoing treatment. She says her 25-year military career helped prepare her for the battle, but her ongoing fight against cancer has also led her to a cause she's passionate about and opened the door to new opportunities. Joining me in studio on this Veterans Day to talk about it is Sheila McGlown. Sheila, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
So you were told 10 years ago that you had 3 to 5 years to live, and yet here you are today. What's the status of your cancer?
Right now, I am on a clinical trial, and actually I just had a scan on Wednesday, and it's still stable. They're looking at a spot in my 4th rib.
Okay.
Yes.
So it is still in places around your body?
Yes, but it's not doing anything. It's not progressing. So they're trying to see what the clinical trial is going to do.
So when they had previously told you this 3 to 5 years, that must have just been horrifying to hear.
Yeah, because the first question that you ask when you're diagnosed with stage 4 is am I going to die? Like, how many years do I have? And the average lifespan is 3 to 5 years. And 10 years later, because of research and because of great doctors, I'm still here to talk about it and to be an advocate.
And are they saying it at all at this point? Hey, now we think you'll have another 10 years, or now we think this, or are they just not even saying it?
No, they're not even saying it. And I don't even think they say anything like that anymore anyway. But me and my doctor, we never had that discussion again in the past 10 years. So.
Okay, because you have defied the statistics.
Yes, I did. Almost doubled, 10 years. Yeah.
So you mentioned you're part of a clinical trial. Tell us a little bit about this. What is that looking at?
Well, the clinical trial, my cancer has started progressing again in July of 2018. And I was stable. And my doctor came to me and she said, Sheila, your tumor markers are up. And the scans show that in your 4th rib, it's growing again. So I'm like, well, what do you want to do? I need to get back on chemo? Do I need to do radiation? And she said, well, I have this clinical trial that you might want to try. And so that's when we decided together that I would go on a clinical trial. And it wasn't a last resort because I could have went back on another chemo. And sometimes people think that clinical trials are a last resort, and they're not. And we started talking about the clinical trial, and actually I've been on it since July of 2018. So it'll be almost, 16 months. And it entails a great deal. It entails a lot. Just today, I've been over at Barnes. I had to get an EKG. I had to get a heart scan, and I had to get blood work done. So once I leave here, I got to go back to Barnes, Stipman Cancer Center, and get treatment and everything else.
So they're basically testing you to see how this treatment is working.
Yes.
Overall, do you have any sense of whether the results are promising?
Yeah, because 16 months and I'm still stable, and I've been like that for, like I said, 16 months. So the clinical trial is working and it's doing what it's supposed to do. And also, only 1% to 3% of African American women participate in clinical trials.
Now, I understand that's become a real focus for you.
Yes.
You want to encourage that number to increase.
Yes.
What do you think has caused such a very low rate of participation for women like yourself?
I think it's medical mistrust in the medical system. And we go back to the Tuskegee Airmen Project and Henrietta Lacks.
That's where people were actually being used as almost guinea pigs.
Yes.
And yet you feel like this is a much different situation, this trial that you're in.
Yeah, it's a much different situation. There are laws in place now that are different from way back then. And if we want to cure, we have to be able to give ourselves, because somebody had to been on the chemos that I were on before this clinical trial. Somebody had to do that for me. Mm-hmm. So I said, well, I'm not just going to walk the walk and talk the talk. I want to do it and show women and show different communities, underserved communities, that, hey, clinical trials do work, and they do.
So you see this almost as a way of giving back, that you've chosen this path for your treatment.
Yes, I do, because it's not only going to affect women of all races now, but 10, 15 years later, it's going to affect women that are newly diagnosed that's going to be using its medicine. So,
yeah, I mean, how much do you think of that when you're going through your treatment, that what's happening to your body might be the thing that leads to something that is a major breakthrough?
I think that's what keeps me going, because the side effects are, I'm not going to say it's all nice, but the side effects are really, sometimes it's like, oh my God, am I just really,
you're in some pain.
Going through this. Not so much pain, but like nausea and where you just want to just lay down, fatigue or whatever. But it's so worth it because it's so rewarding, because, I'm helping future generations. So, and, I don't want my daughter, if God forbid, my daughter, who is 30 years old, ever diagnosed with breast cancer, maybe this could help her or I don't know if you have daughters or daughters, nieces, and 1% of men get breast cancer too. So, so it's helping future generations.
Now, I know that 7 years after your diagnosis, you ended up getting involved with something else that really ended up leading to some additional meaning in your life. And that was something called a Fresh Chapter. Tell us about that organization. What do they do?
Oh, it was so beautiful. A Fresh Chapter, when I talk about a Fresh Chapter, I smile. But a Fresh Chapter is an organization. Her name is Terry Wingham, and she co-founded it. She's from Canada. And I was on Facebook, and I'm like, well, what is a Fresh Chapter? Because one of my friends I think she was going to Peru. And she was asking for donations. So I'm like, okay, I'll donate, but I want to read up on it as well.
Yeah, why is she going to Peru?
Yeah, why is she going to Peru? And she's, she has metastatic breast cancer like I do. So so I asked her about it, and I went on the website, and I'm like, I'll never get this. I'll never, And I filled out the application and everything, and then I talked to Terry, and I was going to India. Yeah. So we went over to India in 2016, and it was like, about 12 cancer survivors. You don't have to be breast cancer. It's any cancer, and you could be a caregiver.
Okay.
Yeah. And we went over there, and it was just amazing.
So they're sending cancer survivors or caregivers all around the world?
Yes.
Basically, do you pick the country, or they're suggesting a country saying this is one where you could help?
No, they have particular countries. Actually, I just came back from Kenya with a Fresh Chapter.
Oh, wow.
About 3 weeks ago.
So you've now done 2 different trips with them.
Different trips.
And what is the point of these trips? Is this just a tourism thing, or there's more to it?
Well, the first trip was just to do self-care, and she gave us tools to be able to take time out for self-care. Because when I first was diagnosed, I was like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I want to help this person, I want to help that person. But I never took the time for self-care. I never took the time to accept my diagnosis. Or I never took the time for Sheila, because I was always... So when I went over there, she gave us tools for just to be able to take time out for yourself, to think about yourself first. Because if you don't think about yourself first, you can't help others, So, and once she gave us those tools, and we volunteered, I volunteered at a school in India, which was really nice. And the kids, they were like from 3 to 8 years old, and they were amazing. And they didn't care nothing about iPads or iPhones or anything. They just wanted love, and I wanted love. So we both... it was
a great pairing.
Yeah, it was a great pairing because we both wanted the same thing. So it was really, really nice experience. In Kenya, we went over there to help them to try to establish cancer programs, to help them with their cancer programs over there.
For people who are in need of treatment, or?
Not so much in need of treatment, but for people that are diagnosed with not so much breast cancer, but cancer, period. Because over there they think Kenya's think that maybe cancer is the death sentence, it's automatic. So we were over there sharing our stories, just connecting with, we had 6, they called fellows, 6 Kenyan fellows with us, and it was 6 Americans, and it was 6 Eli Lilly personnel. And we went over there, and it was just an amazing, amazing experience how we all came together for one cause, and that was to help Kenya get, or give them the information and the tools to help them over there with cancer, because cancer doesn't discriminate.
So were they receptive, getting to meet these Americans, sort of
Oh my
explaining
goodness.
about your journey?
They were so, it was just so amazing. It was just a great experience. I mean, we went to a baraza, and a baraza is almost like, I described it as like a city hall meeting, where we went to this village, and we all of us got to share our stories. And I mean, they asked questions. I even shared my story. I went to a hospital, and I shared my story in the waiting room. And one of the Kenyans stood up, and he was like, "Man, I wish you could do this all the time. Just come back and give us hope, And it was just such a good feeling, like, man, my story is reaching people over here in Kenya, that my story is very important and is giving people hope.
So that's all through a fresh chapter. Do you see
Yes.
yourself going on additional trips for them now in the future?
Well, yes. We're having like an alumni summit in March in New Orleans. So it's kind of nice that we get kind of like a refresher, like a refresher to, say, are you doing this self-care, and just some more tools to help us get through each day, when we're dealing with cancer.
It's an important reminder that even when you're busy out there sharing your story, you need to make sure you take time for yourself.
Yes, you do. You really have to put yourself first. If you feel tired, relax. If your body says sit down, just really, because I always tell people cancer is a beast. And it's a lot, especially with metastatic breast cancer. So.
And I know that not just in your own battle, but this is something that you've seen with your family. I understand your mom died of breast cancer.
She died in 2004 of breast cancer, and 5 years later, in 2009, I was diagnosed. So I tell people that I've seen cancer like since 2001, so it's that 18 years I've had to grasp that cancer is just going to be a permanent part of my life.
That's a really long battle.
Yeah, and there's no cure for metastatic breast cancer. So I remind women all the time, get your mammograms, do your self-breast exams, and just take care of your body, take care of your breast. And for those out there that are have been diagnosed with breast cancer, you are not alone. We are all here together. I'm your sister. I'm here, even though you might not know me, I'm here fighting with you along the sidelines. We're trying to get bills passed in Congress. It's just a lot of things that we're trying to do. So.
And one last question. I know that these clinical trials, this is something that's so important to you. If somebody is out there listening who's another woman of color, and she's got maybe concerns about this idea of being in a trial, what would you want her to know, or what would you want her to be aware of from your experience as she's trying to decide whether to do this?
Well, first, I have a great relationship with my oncologist, and I trust my oncologist, because after 10 years,
It's a long relationship.
Time. You have a great relationship. And just to know that, write your questions down. If you have any questions about clinical trials, or you can go on many websites that will tell you about clinical trials, and just learn more about it.
So do some research.
Yeah, do some research, educate yourself on clinical trials, and make sure you ask your doctor, well, hey, I heard about this clinical trial, or I heard about that clinical trial. Because once you're on a clinical trial, you don't have to stay on it if you don't. You can, I can get off this clinical trial anytime. And my clinical trial coordinator always tell me that, like, Sheila, it's like, no, it's working, so we're going to stick with it. But just know that they're not a last resort, and they're important, because as African-American women, we have different genes, and, it's not going to be, one cure. I don't think it's Sheila speaking, but it's going to be different cures because, it's different breast cancers. You have inflammatory breast cancer. You have, and my cancer was HER2 positive, which means that my cancer fed off of estrogen. And then you have more aggressive cancers. So there are so many, there are over so many subtypes of breast cancer. So just to make sure you ask all the right questions and just be an advocate for yourself. That's the most important thing you could do, is be an advocate for yourself.
That's Sheila McGlown. She's an U.S. Air Force veteran who's been fighting breast cancer now for 10 years. Sheila, thank you so much for your service, and thank you for joining us today, too.
Thank you.
This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to conservation and careful management of the state's forests to make them more resilient and better habitats for wildlife. ChooseWood.com.